We're back.
Welcome in episode 7. Three brothers talking, uncut conversation about life, fully uncut. And we're in our third studio location tonight. We've moved underground.
All over the world. No.
All over the world, all over the greater southern Columbus area. We've moved downstairs now.
In the basement.
Into the basement.
Of my
The
house.
podcast has gone underground.
Surrounded by some shiplap.
Yeah.
Very nice
Lots
studio.
of lots of unfinished house projects and
Yeah.
stuff down
To be
here.
clear, the shiplap is actually, it's not on the walls. It's actually like on the ground.
It's yet to be manufactured. So,
but,
really
you know.
right now it's just boards.
Really, it's just boards on the ground. But we're here to talk tonight, episode 7, and I'm David. I'm your perfectly timed host.
I'm Andrew. I'm just a host tonight. Nothing special.
I'm Jeremy, and I am watching the Jackets game as we record host.
Oh, well, Jeremy's not focused. Yeah, go
Yeah.
Jackets.
I mean, it's an intermission.
it's
It
the
is.
second round.
I
for
hope
the
all of
Blue
our
Jackets.
listeners realize that this is playoff hockey time. So we're giving you content, and we're also
we're a
enjoying
sacrifice for
ourselves.
the listeners.
We are really sacrificing.
It's an NFL draft night,
It's just in the background.
and the Jackets are on. So
Yeah, we'll
Well,
see
you will-
if that really sacrifices the quality of the
Yeah,
recording.
things we
we'll still
do.
give you all our undivided attention.
The number of times over under where we're just like, wait, what were we talking about?
Yeah,
What? I
that might
wasn't
happen.
listening.
Yeah.
No. We also have our first sponsor on the, I should say on the Perfectly Timed host because of our perfectly timed episode last time, which was exactly 28 minutes, which was
nailed
entirely
it.
unplanned.
Yeah.
And
I planned it. You just didn't know it.
so if you haven't listened
I
to
was
it,
count- I was counting
paced
in my
myself
head.
the entire episode to sit there and be like, all right, we're going to be on 28. This is when I do and don't talk, and when I listen.
yeah. So the good news is that if you have exactly 28 minutes to spare, we've got you covered for 1 week. And
This might be more or less. Who knows?
who knows where
This will
this one's
probably
going
be
to go.
more.
You
You
I
think
can
so?
feel it. I mean, we haven't recorded in a
Okay,
while.
over under on how much time
No,
it is.
we
David.
haven't
You have to-
recorded
you
in a
can't tell
while,
us.
so I feel like
Yeah.
the banter is going to be a lot more. So it's going to kick up the time.
Extra
Plus, we are
banter.
sponsored this week, so we
Yeah,
have
we
to
have
add
a
the sponsorship in
sponsor.
there
Lots of extra.
because it's part of it.
Sponsorship. Yeah, the first one, first promo we ever get to do is that Jared, good friend of ours and first friend of the podcast, because he's the first sponsor we've ever had.
Yes.
He
is.
sent us some Blanton's bourbon, and
yes.
it's fancy looking. It's
Blanton
the classiest.
Distilling Company out of Kentucky.
It's fancy.
I wonder if he
looking, man.
drove to Kentucky to get it.
One single
I'm sure he
barrel.
didn't.
I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't know. He might have.
Single
He's
barrel,
a really good friend
straight
like that.
Kentucky
He might do
bourbon
it.
whiskey. And this, yeah. And this is like what's cool here too, is this is like hand bottled
At least
and
it says
filtered.
it is.
Well, you can
Hand
tell
bottled
it
by a
is.
machine.
You can tell it is because it has the date on here of when it was bottled, written in marker by the guy who did it. So like
That's
it's
true.
so like look,
It's a
this
pretty
was
convincing handwriting.
this was bottled in December 8th, and it actually has the handwritten number of like the proof for alcohol as well written. So I guess each generation they make that's pretty fancy.
Yeah, I wonder if this is one of
'Cause,
Jared.
like,
if this
that-
is one
yeah,
of your
that-
favorites, let us know.
That's written in marker. So
That's
like,
pretty cool.
That's pretty neat.
It's got a horse and jockey
Don't
on
use
the
that.
top of the bottle. It's shaped kind of like an orb.
I'm no
Yeah, it's a
expert
globe or
on
something.
this, but I can tell you it tastes good.
Yeah.
So thank you, Jared.
Thanks to Jared. If you want to sponsor the cast, the pod, just let us know. You can email us, threebrotherstalking@gmail.com, and just tell us what you want us to talk about.
Mhm.
And, it doesn't all have to be bourbon sponsorships. Probably, I would just venture to say most of ours will not be.
Otherwise, we'd be in trouble, I think.
Yeah, well, I think, we could probably aim a little higher than just that. But yeah, let us know.
But we
And,
won't sell out unless we really like the product.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not
We
messing around with
only
any lame
look for
stuff.
things we believe in or the people we believe in.
Yes, and if there's anyone I believe in, it's Jared.
I believe so much in him.
Absolutely, 100%. Tonight we're going to talk about
Tip of the hat.
these things called memes.
Memes.
Meme.
Memes?
Memes?
Yeah.
Mummies.
Exactly.
Mummies.
We're talking about memes tonight, and
Not really.
Well, not really memes.
Yeah, I was
That'd be
like-
a lame conversation, to be
Yeah.
honest.
It'd be a short conversation.
I don't feel like you gave
Yeah.
a very solid like
We're gonna
explanation as
what
far
we're
as
gonna
that,
do
because that's
is
not a
we're
very
gonna
deep
say-
conversation. So
We're just gonna sit here and talk about the memes we're looking at currently and
What's
try to
your
explain
favorite-
them over a podcast.
Jeremy, what's your favorite meme?
now picture this.
Picture a dude.
Picture like a popular movie scene,
Yeah.
and if it had like text on it, that like most of it was from that movie scene, but some of it wasn't, and it related to
And then you put in your
in
own
real life.
text. Yeah.
Oh, just imagine that. That's
Yeah.
basically what memes are.
That's witchcraft.
But what we're kind of talking about more than that is Jeremy kind of, I don't know if Jeremy coined the term as much as he just kind of said it to us, which is meme culture.
I've heard
Um,
it somewhere. I don't
okay.
know where.
I've heard of mimetic culture.
Well, maybe.
Shout out to Cross Politic because
That's
they
not
talk
even a
about
word.
mimetic culture. Well, that comes
It's a word
from the
now.
word that means
You said it.
that comes from the word mimic,
Yeah.
and they talk about a lot how we live in a culture now that people are all about trying to mimic impressive things or like people in their lives to try to gain like social
Oh yeah.
cachet. Actually, yeah. So they're a good podcast.
Well, I
too.
mean,
They're
yeah.
not
Social
sponsoring us. That'd be
cachet
cool,
is
though.
like literally better than currency these days.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And but meme culture, meaning we kind of live in a culture today that I would say is kind of increasingly getting shallower.
Mm-hmm.
It's increasingly quick and about being quick-witted and about being snarky or sarcastic or
Like quick to pounce.
quick to pounce,
Yeah.
quick to make a joke.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're all people that, you know, are probably on the more sarcastic side of the spectrum,
Yeah.
on more of the like quick to make a joke side of the spectrum. But
Just ask my wife. Yes.
yeah, sometimes far too quick, as I've learned in my life. But we're really, the whole thing tonight is about the idea of what it means to be slow to speak.
Mm-hmm.
To be measured in your interactions with people in a world that is very non-measured in
Yeah.
its interactions with people. So
Well, and in an age where you are so, also you are so enabled in today's world to be quick to speak.
yeah,
Like we have literally, you're able to push whatever thoughts you have or whatever responses you have out to the world for
Anyone.
record or anybody to see in a moment, like just at your fingertip, because everybody has that connectivity on their phones or on
Mhm.
their computers or whatever like that. Let alone the interactions when we're just biting someone back and I think that does transform how we speak to each other in person as well.
yeah,
Just that cultural how that culture has shifted into our interpersonal relationships as well. So that's where it's like you don't realize just how much even your person to person conversations are altered because of, you know, just this whole overarching ability to get your thoughts out there.
Mhm.
So
yeah. It's weird. I don't think that we're not like the first people on the planet to live with a desire to be quick to speak or to be, you know, to fly off the handle about things quickly. But we're the
Mhm.
first people in the history of the world to have an ability to have an audience for all that
in an instant. Yeah.
in an instant. Like
Yeah.
you can, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, complaint or something happy, you can try to share that with people, you know, potentially hundreds, thousands of people in just a matter of seconds before you even think to filter. Like, oh, I don't know, is this really worthy of saying or is this correct? Like before you even have time to think about that,
Yeah.
you can just go ahead and throw whatever you want out there.
Yeah.
And it definitely does not foster an attitude of being quick to listen and slow to speak.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that for years it's felt like God is trying to push into me, because I'm somebody that's pretty opinionated and pretty just like quick
Mm-hmm.
to throw out thoughts or opinions or stuff like that, or to assume that everything I have in my head is like interesting to other people and like they
Yeah.
need to hear it. And so I feel like for years that's been kind of being pressed into me, like God's trying to rein in the tongue. And I wrote an article about it.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug.
At churchword.org.
Churchword.org is the website. But I think it's called like being slow to speak in an age of fast talk. I don't know what it's
you
called.
wrote the article.
He doesn't.
I'll
even
look it up in
remember.
a second.
Did you write it?
But my ghostwriter.
This is like
Are
the
you-
worst plug ever.
Yeah.
I think I read an article
Yeah.
titled this. Just Google it. You'll find it.
But basically, like this idea of how do we interact with other people in a God honoring way? How do we kind of reject the speak without thinking? Why is that important? Why does it matter? Why do we think God wants us to care about that?
Mm-hmm.
What comes to mind?
I think, well, my first thought when this was brought up as a topic was like, I just realized looking back, even over these recent years of being married, that like, I want to be looked at obviously as like the head of my household. I want to be looked at as like a good father, husband, leader. And that's oftentimes to me, I see the realization that I want to have like the quick right answer to everything. And like when Kaylee comes to me with like something that happened or something she sees in the world or something, you know, whatever she's encountering throughout her day, I'm like quick to just throw it. Like my response is just quick to throw it in a box or something that I already have defined, or like something biting that I can just write it off as like, you know, I'm the man and I already understand this and I have the answer for it. And that's where I think like that's kind of that. And that's like how I see, you know, through my social media feeds and everything like that. Everything I'm seeing is like I want to categorize it. I want to have the answers for it. And that's where like it's kind of bred that mentality. And I think being in that sort of relationship is something I need to guard against more. And something definitely that's, once this was brought up as a topic, something that I hadn't really thought about in a while to challenge myself on. So Jeremy, I don't know if you have any thoughts.
I was practicing being slow. Just listen.
There you go.
Well, in a culture like you had both said, everything is very quick. You put it all out there as quick as you can, and as pithy and as short as you can, because that's what people remember. Like no one reads long articles anymore.
Yeah.
That's why they have that. Was it TLDR? Too long, didn't read.
Yeah.
Well,
This
that's
is
why
a summary.
that's why we also live in a clickbait culture too.
Well, and that's
Yeah.
what everything,
Yeah.
and no one needs facts. And the problem with that, especially when you're angry, like we all growing up, like you'd write something down and like, okay, now sleep on it and then send it tomorrow if you still feel that way. Like even email, like there's emails like you'll write it and be like, okay, I need to think about this. I'll walk away. Like, no, I don't want to word it that way. But we live in a culture, and I fall prey to it too. And the way I communicate with my wife and those around us, we want it to be quick, we want it to be done, and then we're moving on. Like everything's very much, even Facebook feeds, Twitter, it's quick, 140 characters or less, and then you're done with
And
it.
then you don't have to
Next
think
thing,
about it
doesn't have
anymore.
to be as true or not. Like that's the other thing. Also, the damage is done from the stance of proven until innocent until proven guilty. Like that's not the culture anymore. By any stretch of the imagination. And there's a reason why it was that culture, is because especially now when everything's blasted, people's entire reputations are gone before they even get a chance to defend themselves.
Yep.
Yeah, there is a pressure to comment on everything today. That, I mean, just for example, the Notre Dame Cathedral burned down. Well, it didn't burn down. Like part of it burned
The
down.
spire burned.
The spire
Yeah.
burned down. And we don't need to get into that so much because I'm sure you've heard plenty about that. I don't think any of us would have particularly like strong takes about that. But one thing that I was struck with this about is how everyone I know was instantly like commenting about that. Most of whom, I don't want to like put words in everybody's mouth or anything like that, but most of them, like, I would never have thought like really have thoughts on that subjct. Like it is a
Or
historic
have
building,
any
and I'm not
real-
trying. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
not trying to say like it's not a historic building. I'm not
No,
trying to say it's
yeah.
not sad. But I guess what I'm saying is like there's this pressure. Something in us now thinks something something is happening in the world, me with my little Twitter feed
I need an opinion
needs
on
to
it.
say something
Yeah.
about it. Or like,
I have the take everyone needs to hear right now.
Yeah.
yeah, like I need to say something about it. Because even if I don't have something strong about it, other people are going to expect me to be someone that cares about it. Or
Yeah.
they're going to expect me to be someone that thinks about it.
Mhm.
And
I think that all comes back to the fact that people are getting their validation through those means as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah, we don't track actually. If you think like most people don't track how well an article is actually received or what. It's just like, okay, how many people clicked on it? How many
Mhm.
people liked it?
mhm.
No one really views even comments anymore. Like, yeah, they do, but it's more of a click, like, move on, click, like, move on. That was like one of the biggest things. I was listening to another podcast, and they're talking about how Facebook and everyone had made the like, and that was like the biggest thing that they had added was the like button,
Mhm.
because you could quickly track, especially for our own mental capacities, like the validation aspect of it, because you don't have
Yeah.
to read it. You just click like and move on.
Yeah.
And that's going back to meme culture, the fact of you just have these short little snippets to tell the story, which are funny,
Yeah.
hilarious often, but that's how we like communicate and everything, even like the serious stuff.
Oh yeah.
And that's not how we should be
You
communicating.
see, I mean, even like bringing up the Notre Dame, like that was instant. That was even created into a meme
Yeah.
in a matter of moments.
Yeah.
And just the like think about that from a radical, like how radical that is. That like now people are sending that around the world, communication wise, and that's being used to get across whatever other point you wanted to get
Yeah.
across. It's just it's amazing to me. Like
How quickly things move.
Yeah.
We don't have a culture that like stops to think deeply about things anymore.
mm-mm.
It's generally seen as inactivity to slow down and be thoughtful.
Yeah. Oh, I get that at work. Like, what? You were thinking about this? Like, yeah, like there are big implications
Yeah.
for
Give
some
me
of this
24
stuff. Like,
hours,
give
man.
me
Yeah.
15 minutes. Like, even
Yeah.
giving 15 minutes now to respond to an email, it's like, whoa,
Yeah.
come on, dude.
It's like, what are you
Yeah.
waiting on?
It's like, well, I have to think about this
Yeah.
because what I say and how I say it matters.
Right. Mhm.
And I mean, there's something that I'm struck by over and over again is all the different like all the different proverbs that talk about speech, like Proverbs 18:13. If someone gives an answer before he hears, it is his folly and shame. 17:27. Whoever restrains his words has knowledge, and he who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding. Proverbs 17:28. Even a fool who keeps silent is considered wise. When he closes his lips, he is deemed intelligent. Proverbs 21:23. Whoever keeps his mouth and his tongue keeps himself out of trouble.
That's fun. That
Yeah.
that doesn't even
Like how much
register
trouble?
anymore.
How much trouble do we get into
Yeah.
with our like desire reflex? It's really like a reflex. It's not
Mhm.
really a desire.
No.
It's just a reflex we've developed.
It's become so natural that you read, react.
As soon as something
Yeah.
comes in front of your eyes or
skim
you hear
react
something,
more
Yeah.
like it actually.
Not even read, react.
as soon as something comes in front of your eyes or goes into your ears, you're immediately like, I've got something to say about that. We don't stop and think like, what would God say about this? How would God have me respond
Mhm.
to this? What does His Word say about this or that? We just
How
kind
are
of,
my
like,
words
react.
going to be coming across
Yeah.
to the audience or whoever else, like whatever platform I'm responding in?
Mhm.
Well, and going back to that, like about how as Christians we should be doing things obviously differently.
Yeah.
We often don't.
Yeah.
And granted, there's a time and a place to communicate that way. Short, pithy. It's funny. We'll all agree with that. There's a time
Yeah.
and a place to do that. But there's also a time and a place to sit there and say, "Huh, let's like actually think, be an active listener, to actually communicate."
Yeah.
And if you actually sat there and said, "Okay, I'm going to literally sit here and listen to you, without anything of myself, just because I want to get to know you," because that's not how we communicate now.
Mhm.
I think we don't like the problem is that the mode of communication you can have about things that aren't serious, things that are just funny, things that are just whatever. We have let that bleed into important things.
Yeah.
Theological things,
I
cultural
think that's-
things.
Yeah.
Like we just want fast things now, and that's fine when it's a fast topic.
Want the cheeseburger?
But when things matter, we have to be able to think about them. We have to be able to take them to the Word and test them.
Yeah.
And we have to have a control over our tongue. I mean, that we can say only what is good for building other people up, right? Like we have to have a control over our tongue so that all of our speech would be seasoned with salt. Another proverb: a fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his opinion. Like that's the attitude that most of us, if we're honest, like that's an attitude that I can have where like I don't have any sort of restraint. It's just like I'm just going to express what I think, what I feel in this moment. And right now, like our only standard for what we share is like how we feel. And we need to have a standard that is like, is this gracious? Is it kind? Is it building other people up? Like I think that's Ephesians talks about that. James too obviously talks about taming the tongue. And I guess I would like to be a man that had better control over that.
It's just that, like I think that's a great point. That I think it's just that the culture itself, obviously the meme culture and all that we're talking about has just bled over into those serious topics as well, where we have to, as a Christian, I think, redefine the line, as far as like we're saying, like we're not saying you can't enjoy, and there's definitely funny, comebacks and stuff like that can be innocent and they can be great in this context, but you have to definitely differentiate and like heed the word of God for when it's a serious conversation that needs to be dealt with in a caring way with the tongue. Then that's where,
because it's not about whether or not you like sent that meme to your friend or whatever. Like we're not three. Because I hate it when people do this.
We have our three brothers texting message, like our text messages, and we send memes quite a bit.
Well, they're funny
because we're also not sitting down as like three. Because Christians do this sometimes. We write think pieces about like things that nobody needs to really have a whole think piece written about. Like
or they're no-brainers.
Incredibly, or just things that aren't that important. Like. So we're not sitting here saying like, oh, be careful. What we're saying is beware of how your habits with other people can be even impacted by just the culture that you're in, like the quick moving, fast talking culture. Yeah. That's really what it's about. Like, I don't
that's
care.
What you don't, that's what, like I said earlier, you don't even really realize until you actually take a second to stop and think about how you are reacting to these things and stuff like that. Where and truly this all does also, you'll never hear us stray from the fact that this all stems from being grounded in the word. Yeah. And like, if you're not, like the verses David is spitting out there, if you're not reading those and reading those proverbs or heeding those in your heart, then that's really the starting point where you'd have to bring all these conversations and whatever your interactions are into focus in the first place. So,
think about the command that all of your speech would be, gracious and useful for building other people up. Like, think about how high of a command that is.
That's a big calling.
Yeah. Yeah. And
in that, the point of it is, part of that is you're sitting there laughing with someone. Like that's part of, like that's a Ecclesiastes 3 where I keep going to this. There's a time for everything, a time and a place. There's time and a place to be serious, a time and a place not to. Yeah. And like I was talking to David actually last night about, I was listening to a pastor talk. And he goes, we always think that God's only happy when we're working or something like that. But like God's also happy when you're feasting and enjoying his creation. Like, so enjoying it when it's the time to do those things. But also, like you said, being careful to let these things seep into our subconscious, and that's how we just react all the time.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. The mark of maturity, is to know when to be lighthearted and when to be serious, and to know when to be measured and when you can cut loose. Yeah. That's what being mature is.
And I would also think, just from a Christian or biblical perspective, if you're straying that line, then it would always be more wise in those contexts to have more careful thought than to err on the side of obviously to err on the side of reaction.
I don't think I've ever sat there and said, "Man, I'm glad I responded that quickly."
Yeah. So like, if you're
I can sit there and say, "I'm glad I waited,"
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
I'm glad I prayed about it, and talked to someone else before I sent this. I've never sat there and said, "Man, I'm glad I did my first gut reaction." In most cases,
Yeah, it's true.
So like as far as advice, because there is no perfect way. Obviously,
Yeah.
this is all case by case and situation by situation basis. But I mean, always be erring on the side of heeding God's word and then careful thought and deliberation before response.
Yeah, I
So,
think the Bible, and this is something I go into in that article, which is called "Being Slow to Speak in an Age of Fast Talk," because I looked up the title.
good title you came up.
It's a good title, but something I talk about in there is that being slow to speak is the deepest self-control that the Bible puts in front of us.
mm,
I mean, James chapter 2, like, it says, like, if a man does not stumble in what he says, he is perfect. Like, meaning,
In James 1, no one can tame the tongue.
who can
Yeah.
tame the tongue? Like, the idea in the Bible is like, yeah, this will be your toughest battle.
yeah.
To control your tongue, to not let your tongue control you. You know, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. I think it's interesting that there seems to be some kind of connection between slow to anger, or anger and speech.
Yeah.
There
Well-
seems to be some kind of connection between, if you're fast to anger, you're probably fast to talk, and if you're fast to talk, you're probably fast to anger.
Yeah, they're tied. Yeah.
Well, out of the heart, the mouth speaks, or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
That's in there too.
It's in there too.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Something like that. I read that once in a book.
I love how nonchalantly you threw
Yeah,
that
you
out.
know.
Like,
I love
yeah,
that it ended with "or whatever."
Something like that.
Heart, mouth speak. Yeah.
Out of the heart, the mouth speaks. Whatever.
I just drop stuff like a mic.
Yeah. That was just funny. It was so like you quoted it perfectly, but then you said whatever.
No,
if,
that was
like,
in
you
my
hadn't-
message translation, so we're fine.
You don't need
Yeah.
the whatever. It does say that.
That's
Yeah.
what Jesus said.
Yeah.
Sermon on the Mount.
Yeah.
You know, guys. You know, out of the heart, the mouth speaks.
Mark
whatever.
it down.
See you later.
It's in the red letters. So
Yeah. No, that's and that's like we've talked about it a lot already in the context of marriage. You guys both brought it up,
Mhm.
like with your wife.
Yeah, you did.
How-
So there
I
you go.
didn't. That's just because it should be obvious with me that's my struggle. But like it's obvious there. But think about your interactions with your bosses, with your friends, with the people in your church. Like, be
And non-believers.
cognizant of, like, are you non-believers? Are you being gracious with those people?
Yeah.
Are you interacting with them in a way that demonstrates, like, the grace that you've been shown? Are you interacting with them in
Yeah.
a way that, the grace you've been shown and the self-control the Bible lays out for you? Are you actually exemplifying that? Or do you look like the crazy people on your social media feeds that you sit back and you laugh at them and you're like, look at these dummies who just get angry all day, but you might be just as angry as them.
Yeah.
The question is, what witness, like, being slow to speak, being measured, being accurate, being gracious, being loving, that can be a very powerful witness to the
Oh,
world
yeah.
around you.
Well, that's like, and I think that's just so vital to hit on, that if you're wanting to be more effective in your ministry as a whole,
Mhm.
like, I think that is, in today's culture, that is going to be one of the biggest ways to set yourself apart from the world. Like, if you are not the one that is just, all over social media and quick to, spew anger and all this, then, and if you are truly heeding these words and slow to speak, as we've been talking about, like,
Mhm.
that's going to set you apart as far as looking different from the world today.
Very
and that's
different.
going, like, that could be because God knows, like, as we said, God knew this is going to be one of the biggest challenges facing the human race in
Yeah.
the sinful era as a whole. And so this is the way you can set yourself apart as well. If
Mhm.
you are careful, and, like, even as we've discussed today, like, it's an ongoing challenge to constantly be redirecting yourself and to be refocusing yourself on this.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, like I said, like, many times I've looked back on my life and I'm like, wow, I wasn't slow to speak, and I probably looked a lot like the world.
Probably
And
looked like an idiot.
I looked like an idiot, and I looked very.
That's what I think all
I
the
looked
time.
very worldly focused in that context.
Yep.
Like, I didn't look any different than anybody else out there.
Mhm.
And that's where it's it's something that you have to, like, I think, just realizing that after the fact is, how obviously hindsight's 2020, but that's something that I can definitely carry with me going forward. That if you do want to be effective in ministry, if you do want to look different, this is one of the big tickets to get under your belt.
Yep.
Well, I think that's engaging a culture isn't just putting a piece on Facebook or something like that either. We kind of have made that our platform. We're just going to put an article or a blog post, but we're not actually interacting with the problem.
Yeah.
And the biggest way, as an example, like you guys have both said, like if I'm not going to be sitting there saying I'm not going to be slow to speak, then why do I expect, especially non-believers, to be slow to speak? I can't expect a non-believer to play by the same rules I do.
Yeah.
That's just not how it works.
Yeah.
So being gracious in the moment to them, but also saying, especially to ourselves, saying, hey, like lovingly rebuking when it does call for that, when the relationship allows for it. But also saying there, saying yourself, when you do fail, saying, man, I really did mess up here.
Yeah.
I spoke too quickly, or I was angry, my tone was wrong. Will you forgive me? That is something it's uncomfortable because we don't like to do that to anyone.
Yeah. Be slow to speak.
Well, when it's online, you can just ignore it and move on.
Yep.
Like,
you just click the delete button.
Yeah,
and it
you
goes
just
away.
Be slow to speak, and when you're not, be ready to apologize and pray. Pray for self-control. It's a fruit of the Spirit.
Yeah.
You need the Spirit to work in you. And as Andrew said, like we need to be in the Word so that it begins to rule us. The Spirit would use that to grow us in self-control.
And pray that as you get better with it, that it would be evident and clear to those around you, like in your circles and stuff too. Because
people need it. You're in. You will set yourself apart if you can be gracious in all things, no matter the conversation, no matter the whatever. If you can be gracious, you can be kind, you can be slow to speak. You will set yourself apart, and you'll put the gospel on display because of the peace and the love that you show in any and all circumstances. So,
well, and look, that we were just coming off Easter, like the greatest example. We can just go back to the fact of Jesus when he was slandered and spit on and everything, and
he suffered quite a bit.
Yeah, and he was silent.
Yeah.
And he actually then said, "Forgive them, for they don't know what they do." And countless times, even throughout his ministry, like when Simon Peter does react quickly, and cuts the guy's ear off, or in other instances where Peter does the same thing and speaks too quickly, he rebukes him and says, "Hey, it's not how this is done in the kingdom." And that's how we're supposed to live. It's just supposed to be different. Like, we're allowed to be able to joke around and have a great time, and we all do. And there's a time and a place for that. But knowing when things are and are not supposed to be that way is important.
Yep.
It's really, I mean, I know that's why it's something about self-control being like the end of the list of the fruits of the Spirit. That's really all it is. Like speaking, having better speech is about self-control. And God wants us to have that, to be different. And it'll be a mark upon the church. If we get better at it, it'll be a mark upon the church to a culture that's around us. So, I think we
that was good.
Got all the way through that topic.
I love how we always end with, I think that was good.
Yeah.
If not, it was fun.
We're still learning, so obviously give us feedback if that was not.
Give us your honest 5-star feedback.
Take some time to think about it.
Think about it first. So if you probably already typed out.
You're probably already responding.
And then rewrite it out and be like, I could add more fluff
Wait on
to
it
this.
for a night.
You've probably already tweeted like 3 times about how dumb this episode was.
Why am I still listening to these guys
and
talk?
all I want to say is that this episode stands in witness against you.
Speaking of which,
that you should have been slow to speak.
Did you guys, just so you know, the draft is on. Number 1 overall was Kyler Murray, which we all kind of saw coming.
To the Cardinals?
To the Cardinals. Wasn't a trade. And then Nick Bosa went to the 49ers 2nd overall.
Figured that.
What I said. Buckeyes are represented.
Figure I'd give that's 3 brothers talking about sports.
Yeah.
Later to come.
So if I'm not going to think about my speech, I'm just going to say really quickly, that first pick seems weird to me. But anyway.
I'm not a fan.
That'll be maybe a bonus episode. We'll talk about that sometime.
About Kyler Murray in the first pick overall.
I don't know if I care about it that much, but
yeah,
it'll be a 5-minute conversation.
Yeah. So now, if you're not a sports person, you just wrote another tweet about how this show is garbage, and to which we would reply, "Yes, it is."
That's okay. But it's free content.
Yeah. Thank you for
We're not
listening.
charging you for it, so yeah.
Thank you for listening. Thanks to all the reviews we've gotten. We're going to talk a little bit about that in the next episode. If you've rated us on iTunes, it's really helpful wherever you listen to podcasts.
Before we close, any recos?
I got a quick one.
Okay, you can do that.
Ligonier. We just talked about R.C. Sproul in the last episode, and Ligonier, which was started by R.C. Sproul, just started a new podcast, and it's called Simply Put. They go through a theological term every episode, and I think it's weekly. It just started, and the episodes are less than 10 minutes most of the time. And they just try to, the idea is building your theological vocabulary one word at a time. So if you're somebody that kind of wants to like know a little more theology and stuff, but it's intimidating, or you're not ready to listen to hours long of content, it's like 7 to 10 minutes. A quality teacher will kind of like...
I hadn't heard of that.
Yeah, so it's called Simply
Put. I'm going to subscribe right now on the air so we can hear how that sounds. Well,
and it sounds like nothing. Your phone's on silent.
It's not doing anything.
But yeah, Simply Put by Ligonier. That's a recommendation. And we will catch you guys next time.